Good morning and welcome to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm Jay Edgar, and I am joined over here to my right by the wonderful Brian, who has saved me and pulled my ass out of the fire for this week because I had my guest cancel on me. Not last minute this time. I was worried about that before when I first asked him to come on the show, but last enough of a minute that I was kind of annoyed by that. So, Brian, welcome to Ed's World.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And thanks for coming on, and I hope you've studied because I'm going to be picking your brain just like I have been for the last 10 years. I know
Yeah,
I
hopefully.
I know I generally bring people on from around the country and talk to people that I've barely met before, but this is actually one of my real life friends and somebody I've known for a good decade before this, and we've had some interesting conversations off camera, and now we're going to have a couple on camera.
Yep.
Before we get started, brief announcement here. The date is set. The time is still not quite there, but I will be joining Robert from the Generational Gap to have a debate about gun control, something we actually stand kind of on the same side of. The entire debate will be, as I mentioned last week, for St. Jude's Children's Hospitals. All of the proceeds that get generated from this debate, all the donations that you give, will be given directly to St. Jude's. I'm not going to see a dime of it, but I want to do my part to help. So go ahead and sign on. The link will be on my Twitter, it'll be on my Facebook. Sign on, throw a donation, watch Robert and I discuss what gun control means in a modern world, and have some fun, maybe meet some new people in the chat. So I hope you'll join us for that. That will be on April 19th. Time to be determined. Before we get too much further into this, I'm going to headline our topics here just for a little bit. We can't be talking about news in this country right now without rather talking about what's going on in the Mueller report and the ever-moving target that's changed over the last week of that. When I talked to Mackenzie last week, we were first learning about the fact that the charges against Jussie Smollett were going to be dismissed officially. Now, that story has done some morphing here, and my friend Brian here does live fairly close to Chicago and has some ties into Chicago, so I think he's going to have some good takes on that, and we'll talk about that a little bit. 2020 is coming up ever faster, and we will be watching more and more of who's going to jump into the race, who's going to go out of the race, and who's going to get handsy with another lawmaker on the race. So we'll talk about Biden and everything else that's going on in 2020. Senate Majority Leader McConnell brought a vote on the Green New Deal to the floor, and it had an unexpected result, especially with all the people who were building it up. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And it has become official that Great Britain and the UK will be deciding on another vote whether or not they really meant Brexit or not. So we will talk a little bit about Brexit, what's changed since 2016, and where we both think this will go before. As always, because we have talked so much over the years and sometimes we get sidetracked, it will be all of this and more on your weekly episode of Ed's World. Thanks for watching the show on YouTube, and if you like what you see, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for listening to this on the audio platforms. If you like this on the audio platforms, go ahead and subscribe as well. And if you are on Apple, leave us a 5-star review because that helps us move up the charts. Now that we've got all of that out of the way, Brian, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, like you said, we've known each other for over 10 years now. And we've had quite a lot of conversations over the years. And most of them have been religious to some aspect or in how that works into politics and just life in general. And so this should be interesting here just to do this in front of people and have it recorded so that they can watch it whenever they want and make fun of us for it.
Punch him in the face.
In the face.
Uh, Before we get started, I do want to take some time and give an endorsement to a friend of the show that's been on the show before because she just put out a video, or not a video, she does audio only. She just put out an audio series on her podcast, the Adventist Millennial Podcast, that I found really interesting and I found really related to my life. Emily and I rather talked about this a little bit off camera while we were prepping for our show together, and we talked about me possibly going on to her show and talking about it a bit as well. But she had some of her friends, I believe they were her siblings, from what I heard from the story, and they were talking about various ideas of the church and music in the church. But in their last episode, they talked a bit about, and this is something that I to understand is an Adventist struggle to begin with, but the relationship with Christ versus the relationship with the church. And that's something I've always been a little uncomfortable with, because whether it's the Catholics or Protestants or whichever denomination, I've always seen a little bit of corruption in the organization of men versus what I think the apostles and Jesus himself ever pictured could have come through an organization like that. So it's a really good episode. They talk a lot of topics. There's a lot of fun in it. They have a lot of fun with each other. There's a lot of laughter in it, but it's a relatively serious topic, and I recommend everybody go over and talk about that. You and I have talked about this topic before, too, because I think you
Yeah.
and I don't completely see eye to eye on this. I don't
No.
necessarily believe there's so much to do with the actual building and the superstructure of the church, because it does open itself to corruption, and I do cite the line that Christ said that wherever two or three come together in my name, there I am with them.
Hmm.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So from what I believe is the Bible is inerrant, and so in the Bible there is a whole lot of, well, there's no way to get around separating Christ from his church. So I believe completely that everyone should be in a local church, a good gospel centered local church that believes the Bible and teaches it. And so I understand why people are hesitant because of corruption, because men are all sinful, and that's just part of living in this broken world until it is made new again, and we don't have to worry about that. But it you can't go through the Bible and separate. Christians cannot be separated from the church. You have to, yeah, you can say just two or three are gathered in my name, he's there, and the Spirit is there. But the church is definitely set up, and there's ways that it's supposed to be set up from books of the Bible. You can go through and read about elders and how they're supposed to be caretakers of the church and just how the church should function. And so I don't really see that there's a way to get around that. And I really think the biggest problem really is it's taking an American mindset because we're so individualized as Americans. And the Bible was not written with that kind of mindset. It's written more group mindset in a culture that's more shame and honor um, focused. And so, from the American standpoint, it's hard for us to see exactly what the Bible's saying unless you read it through that lens. And so that's a lot of the times that's where the individualist part of people who's they want to be Christians, but they don't necessarily want to be the church, but you're missing out on so much if you're not part of a church. So
And it may take finding the right church on that too. I can't agree that there are so many of the wrong ones out there. In fact, I listened on the phone to your very mind break when, and I'll leave the details of it off camera because it's between me and my ex girlfriend. But the church that she was in and the problems that you saw with everything I described in that. I don't
yeah.
know if you remember that one, and I'll remind you off camera. But yeah,
I don't know if I remember all the details, but yeah, I remember. And churches are churches are definitely not exempt from being corrupt, and that is what the devil is trying to do every day is to break up churches and keep their focus off of the gospel and the actual words that are written in the Bible, so that we are blinded from the truth. But it's our job as Christians to seek out the truth. So
well, one of these days I actually might have to get you and Emily on together, and I think that would be an interesting discussion to have right there.
yeah.
I might have to just sit in the background and listen and be taught.
Yeah, well, we'll see maybe.
But as far as the fact that we've got this endorsement down, I think it's time for us to sit down and tackle the meat of this project here. Are you
All
ready
right.
to go in and talk about the same thing everyone else is talking about right now?
Sure, we can talk about that.
All right. So, as we all know, Robert Mueller came out last week on a Friday at the end of the day and announced that he was not going to be seeking any further indictments to the Donald or anybody else in his family or his administration. He searched high and low for 2 years and he got everything that he could, and he sees no reason to pursue a further indictment onto that. And we all thought that was going to be the end of it. But in reality, we all knew that it wasn't going to be the end of it. And this is a moving target that has changed just completely over the last 2 weeks, because we talked about this extensively when I had my last guest on last week. So let's walk back a little bit here, because this is going to be your first time getting to talk about something like this out in the open. But what was your initial take on the report when you heard about it last Friday?
It kind of came out like I thought it would. Like I didn't think they would find anything. I honestly thought it would go on through the next election. But so when it actually came out, I was like, oh, okay. And then when they're like, yeah, no indictments, I was like, oh, yeah, that's about right. But yeah, just I mean, I get it because especially on the left, but it's true also on the right. It's all about power, And so from Obama to Trump, they still can't come to the realization that he was elected. And then so they're basically doing anything they can to get their power back. And it's just I'm glad that the report came out and we don't know exactly for sure what the actual words in it are, but that there was no indictments, that's a big, huge indicator that there's nothing else really that you could take from it.
I was just glad I got to see Rachel Maddow cry in real time.
I didn't see that. I don't really care enough about her.
Is it her or him?
I don't know. Whatever.
We can't really tell, right?
They.
Well,
We'll just stick with they.
yeah. Politically correct. There you go.
Sure.
Well, this has changed a little bit since, even Tuesday when Kenzie and I talked about this, because, now, or right away, the demand was for us to see the full report, have it all released, and
Mhm.
have it over to Congress right away, right now, right now, right now. Which, let's face it, if this was something that was coming out about Hillary or Obama, they would be trying to delay it just as much as they could. But
Yeah.
I think that's tribalism in its best right now. I'm not ready to balkanize this country yet, but I do see the
Yeah.
tribalism forming there. But now they've gone so far as to Senate Leader Chuck Schumer came out and said that William Barr's Justice Department needs to have the full report over to the Senate by tomorrow, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see that happening, and that's just a political stunt. Like,
Yeah.
if the report takes 2 years to have it in completion, like, you can take a couple weeks to make sure you don't release something you shouldn't. So it's like it'll come out and they'll see it, and then they'll pull out their bits and pieces and try to spin it their way, and that's how it goes.
Well, and they say that it's like 300 to 600 pages, so I mean, that's something you can read in a weekend. I understand that. I what did I read in a weekend? I read the first Harry Potter book in like a night. So 300 pages isn't huge, but
Yeah, but reading it and like having to go through every detail and see if it needs to be redacted or not, that's
yes,
two different things.
yes,
So,
exactly. That's it too. And I mean, it's not just going to be reading that report. I mean, Barr's got a library of law books that he's going to have to look over on constitutional law, top secrecy law. There's so many other laws that he has to sit down and think about and sit
yeah,
and review and read every line by line, and say, okay, can this be in and can this be out? This isn't an easy process. Now he is saying he is going to have it out by right around tax day, right around the middle of April. But
yep,
Yeah, I mean, 4-2
Yeah,
is
so
just
it's ridiculous. Yeah, I know. Even the fact that it's going to come out in a couple of weeks, that's pretty good. So
yeah.
we'll see, and then we'll see. I'm sure the public will get some version of it. I don't know if it'll be the same one Congress gets, but at this point, there's no way that they could get away with not releasing it to the public, I think.
Well, and a part of it, like Schumer said that he's going to subpoena it if he doesn't have it, which that's the stuff that
Yeah,
I'm seeing.
that's fine. And then he can still delay it because if it's going to come out in 2 weeks anyway, who cares? Like, he
Yeah,
could
and I
delay it for
understand
two
that the
weeks.
president isn't above the law and the executive branch is, but I mean, you subpoena the person who decides whether or not to enforce a law. That was Obama's whole thing when he was on there was
Yeah.
whether or not we actually enforce the law or not. And now the executive branch has got full fealty as to whether or not to do that because of the precedent that Obama set.
Yep. I know. It's just funny. Double standards.
Hmm.
Only standards they got there in Washington.
If the left didn't have a double standard, they wouldn't have any standards at all.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure that Barr has got a staff of people under him. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's just lawyers, paralegals. There are probably hundreds of people on his staff that he could possibly turn this over to and they could chunk that out. But the first thing you have
Hmm.
to determine is who has security clearance to see it and who doesn't.
Yep. So then that limits how many people can even look at it, and then from there they got to take chunks of it and they got to scrutinize every single word and go through it. And like you said, they have to go through it and see which laws limit them from releasing certain things. So it's definitely not a job I would want.
I particularly enjoy reading legal writing, but man, I couldn't picture going through that again. Especially
No.
when I've got half the federal government breathing down my neck to try and get it back out there, too.
Well, yeah. Yep.
Do you think there's anything in there?
Um, I guess, well, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by thing, because, like, is there anything that was indictable? No. So, was
Obviously.
there any crime committed? No. Can you take chunks of the report and make whoever you want look bad? I'm sure you probably can. You can do that with anything.
Well, that's where I'm going. Do you think there's anything that's spinnable in this?
Oh yeah, there's spinnable stuff and everything. So, I'm sure we'll get two stories once the report comes out to Congress. You'll basically think that they saw two different reports, but that's how it is with everything.
Yeah, that's. And it's not even just them, it's for the most part the constituents at this point holding them to the fire. I think that they would let it go if it wasn't for the fact that people like Rachel Maddow went out on TV every night, night after night, to try and
Yeah.
get this. What really gets me is, I said in my video when I did this as a solo video, I mean, nobody really knows exactly how this got started to begin with. And if you listen to Hannity, you think that it's the tape about the hookers taking a leak on the bed over in Moscow. And if you listen to Maddow, it was, oh, there was already an investigation into him because he's Trump and he's evil and this and that. And Mueller just took it
Yeah.
over.
I I don't know. That's one of those things that I don't think we'll ever really know. There's people who do know, and they're probably from the Obama administration, but how are we ever going to find that out? You'll never know for sure. Yeah.
I was listening because I'm considered to be on the right, and I would consider myself that way. But occasionally, I'll listen to a podcast or something from the left, and one of them I was listening to, Pod Save America, is actually two guys who are in or who were in the Obama administration put on a podcast now, and man,
Okay.
they are they're not happy about this. I can tell you that.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like I don't know. I don't know if I have a good analogy. It's like they've been believing a lie. Oh, I know. It's like well, little kids don't listen to this, but it's like when you found out Santa Claus wasn't real. Yeah, blow your mind.
Wait, Santa Claus isn't real?
Oh, I mean the Easter Bunny. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't. It kind of seems like that's what's happening to them. They're just their minds are being blown because there is obviously this. Excuse me. They thought their report's going to come out. Is going to say, "Yep, Trump, he's a Russian, and we're going to impeach him now." And finally, the nightmare would be over. But they're stuck. They're stuck with Trump.
Well, and I mean, as this drug along, because I pay attention to some of this in other social circles on around the internet, so I get a chance to talk to a lot of people from around the country. I actually heard this identical tripe that I'm about to share with you. Uh, I heard this about Obama, but I heard people on the left saying this about Trump now too. One of my friends over on the right, I was talking to him about the fact that we were talking about the fact that birtherism is still a thing for whatever reason, which I can't wrap my head around to begin with. And we were talking because I don't care anymore whether or not he was born in Kenya or not. We can't change it anymore. We can't
Yeah.
undo the Obama presidency. And my friend of the show, Seawall, actually, who is probably going to be watching this tomorrow when I release it, came out and he had a point by point plan as to what would happen and what would change after the fact if we found out that Obama was never legitimate to be president.
Oh yeah.
But then
What would actually change?
Kagan would be gone. The other Supreme Court justice would be gone. Every executive order would be gone. Every law that he signed would have to go away. It would be like they would historically undo everything, and
I don't know if they would do that though. I don't think
that
they
would
could do
cost
that.
so much money too.
Yeah, I don't think they could do that. That's like in an ideal rightist world, maybe they could do
Yeah,
that, but I don't see that being practically feasible.
yeah. Well, the amazing thing was there's so many people. Obviously, according to the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, you can read and see what would actually happen if this Mueller report had come out with anything that was indictable to the president. There would be articles of impeachment, which I said in my video too. I don't know if this was even a legal investigation because the Federalist
Yeah,
Papers made it pretty clear that a president sitting can't be indicted, and you can't really open the investigation up without reading the articles of impeachment. And they never did that. I don't know if
yeah.
this was a legitimate investigation or not.
I mean, it should have never really happened in the first place. That's what Congress is for.
Yeah.
If the president did something, they should have been the one to investigate him, and then they decide if he needs to be impeached or not.
Well, where I was going with that, though, I've heard people on the left, especially on Twitter, come out and say, okay, no, this is it, the Federalist Papers don't mean anything. If we find that Trump has done this and this is actually what happened, we undo the election because it's not valid at all. And Pence goes away because that was the big concern is, if we have to remove Trump, then Pence goes in, who is a stricter conservative than Trump ever would be because I don't even believe Trump himself is a conservative. He's a populist
Yeah,
and he's a money president. He's not really a moral president.
yeah,
But no, oh no, Pence will go away. This will be like the whole thing never happened. We're going to make this go. How?
yeah, yeah,
There is no
exactly.
existing law to make this go away.
Nope, nope. So yeah, I don't see how that would be feasible either. Just like eliminating Obama's everything, if he was not legitimate, there's no way you could undo the election. You're not gonna have people vote again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, in 10, maybe there was something you could have done about it. But, I mean, 2 years after the administration, and there are still people that are talking about it. That's the thing that blows my mind.
yeah. It's kind of like a yeah, get over it. It's like there's nothing you can do. Like if you want to do something, you pick the best candidate to kick him out of office. That's what you got to do.
Yeah,
But
and
I,
primary him if you have to.
yeah, but I don't know. I don't see that happening either. They got a bunch of winners over there.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in here, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I've seen change thus far in the Mueller report. Do you have anything to add before we move on, or?
Nope. Just like I said, it basically happened. What happened was kind of how I thought it would happen. Anticlimactic. So
Well, If that's all that you have, then we're going to move on to something that's actually a little bit closer to home for you and I than it is for a lot of the people that are going to be watching this and a lot of people who have talked about this. On Tuesday, about 12 hours before I started recording with my last guest, the Chicago prosecutor's office came out and announced that they were not going to press the charges that were already set to be pressed against Jussie Smollett per the state of Illinois. The prosecutor's office came out and cited the fact that this was a first offense and Smollett would get nothing more than community service anyway, so it was just going to be a waste of resources to try a case like this. And now it seems that even the most corrupt people in Chicago are standing against this at this point and are looking to weigh in on this and possibly change and maybe even get the federal authorities involved into this. First thing I'm going to ask you, because you live close to me and you live close to Chicago, do you remember how fucking cold it was that day?
Oh, that specific day? No, but it's been really cold every day. So
That was that coldest day that we had. It was minus 20 that day.
yeah, okay. So that's like you breathe and the snot in your nose freezes. Yeah,
And it was at 2 o'clock in the morning.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, the whole story is just yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, uh-huh, sure,
yep.
yeah. But I don't know. It's just, and then if you know like that part of Chicago, I don't think you'd ever really see anyone wearing mega hats. Not like there's no way. And then if they do, it's probably because I don't know, they found it somewhere and they're a little inebriated or something. I don't know, because none of those people that live around there. I'm guessing that if you poll them, they're probably 99% hate Trump. So
Now, you bring up an interesting point because I'm actually the closest I've ever been to being in the city of Chicago was I drove down there. I drove around the loop, but I never got out of my truck while I was down there a couple summers ago. That is the closest I've ever been to the actual city of Chicago. I'm
well,
familiar with
nice
all the
enough.
suburbs, but you
Okay.
know where this actually happened, though,
Yeah, so if
give or
it's
take.
yeah, I know like the general area, but Chicago in general,
That's
they're
true.
not gonna they're not gonna agree with Trump on very much anything. So even to have, I mean, if either of us just took a mega hat and walked around Chicago, we'd get funny looks all day. Like it's just it's not really feasible. This whole story wasn't feasible in the first place. So
Yeah.
it yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, did that really happen? I don't know.
I know, and
Yeah,
all the people that talk about it too, it's like, was this a planned ambush or anything like that? Who carries bleach around with them? Who carries clothesline around with them? Why were you still
yeah.
wearing the noose after you got done eating the sandwich? Why didn't you drop the sandwich? That's got to be a Subway endorsement right there.
I don't know if somebody wants to go there. That's a little touchy now at this point. No, I don't know.
Well, they had Fogel
But
forever.
yeah, I mean, I that the whole story is just weird. And then like I get it. Okay, so he thinks somehow that he'll get more money by being a victim because that's apparently a thing now
Hmm.
in our culture, which is sad. But um, so then it's like, where do you even come up with that idea? And then like, even if you come up with an idea, why do you think that's a good idea? And then like when you think, oh yeah, that's a good idea, why do you think, oh, I could totally get away with that? But then he did get away with it. Well, kind of. But then it's just like, I don't know. It's like, how many steps of crazy go through your mind and nothing stopped you from doing it? I don't know.
Well, that's where I wanted to go with this now too. Is just what's changed over the fact that this is going to be exonerated at this point. It's not just the fact that they're dropping the charges; they are completely expunging the record on top of everything.
Yeah, and they're like locking the case files or whatever.
Hmm.
That too is just weird. Like, okay, why can't we see them? Like, if nothing happened, why can't we see? No, can't see them. They're locked. Yeah, I
Because
don't know.
it's
It's
like nothing happened.
yeah, sure, yeah. But I like some of the people I listen to. They make a good point because he's no longer asking to find the people. Well, if they were indeed were the people that he said he was, then obviously they weren't those two brother guys that they originally had in custody or talking to. So that means the people are still out there. So how come he doesn't care anymore about finding them? It's like I don't know.
But
It's just there's so many weird things with the story. It just blows my mind.
by chance, would those be the two people that he wrote a personal check to?
Oh no, definitely not. I write personal checks to people I don't know all the time, and then they beat me up. No. Yeah, it's just weird. The whole thing's weird.
Well, one of the things that I continually hear over and over is the fact that, this is suggestive of a two-tier justice system, and I can't tell anybody who says that they're wrong because this definitely shows the fact that this is a complete two-tier justice system at this point.
Yeah, I would. Part, part of me wants to say no. Our justice system is set up the way it is, so that's fair for everyone. But then part of me looks at stuff like this as like, come on, you serious? Just because it's because he's got enough money to get away with it. So then that part's like, yeah, it is kind of two tiered. But in an ideal world, our justice system should be set up equally for everyone. That's one of the main parts of the government should protect the weak people or people in this case who don't have money from people who have money. And the people who have money shouldn't be able to get away with things. But they do because our justice system isn't perfect, just like no justice system is. But I definitely understand when people say it's two tiered. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've been saying the same thing about Hillary for years.
Yeah.
The fact that she didn't get prosecuted for Benghazi, which, honestly, I side with the right on most things. I wish they would just give that up.
Yeah, I mean, especially at this point, but there's so many things that that family's done that I'm sure they got away with, and there's probably stuff we don't even have any idea about. But yeah, it's just one of those. It's like one of those things where our government functions the way it does. Is it perfect? No. Is there corruption? Yes. Is it better than most other governments? Yes, to a point. Like, are we getting to that point where it's not anymore because it's being so corrupt? Maybe, but we still have checks and balances. Like, we should be electing better people. Like we get the kind of government because we elect the people we elect. So at the end of the day, it's kind of our fault.
Well, I want to take this back to Chicago and the Smollett thing for just a second here. I know we kind of went off on a federal tangent there for a second, but I mean, the city of Chicago and its relationship with Springfield on top of it has never been pure. At least not in
Yeah,
recent history anywhere. I mean, they got Capone on tax fraud.
yeah, that's true. Chicago is well, Chicago is a pretty good example of how to waste a lot of money and like what money does to governments and why we should limit government as much as possible because it's opposite of all those things.
Well, and, I mean, the corruption is there and it's easy to see. I mean, Kim Fox, who is a part of the prosecutor's office in Chicago, had to recuse herself from the investigation almost right away because apparently she had some connections with the Smollett family. I wasn't able to completely track down what that was because the news story got so big and it was almost impossible to follow at that point. But the fact that a prosecutor had to recuse herself from an investigation that may be the most famous one in the last 2 decades in Chicago history is that just screams red flag to me right there.
Yeah. And then I think I briefly heard something where like she said she wasn't exactly recused. She was kind of recused, like a Chicago kind of recused. So, I don't know. I didn't get to listen to what exactly they were talking about, but I heard that and it just like I chuckled like you just said because it's like, yep, that seems all right, Chicago. All right, good job.
Well, it's like a deep dish. I mean, is it? It's kind of a pizza, but it's kind of a block of melted cheese at the same time.
Yep, that is true. Oh, now I want pizza. Oh, great.
Hey, you still live in the town that I used to live in, and you still have access to mobster pizza. So,
That's true. I do. I
uh,
do have. We have lots and lots of pizza. So,
lots of mob pizza, mafia pizza.
yeah.
I don't get that up here
Well,
anymore.
Italians.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like a little Italy around here.
Yeah. Well, there have been talks too, going back to Fox because she was one of the first people to come up and say this, and she came out almost immediately after the rest of this and said, "Okay, this is a corrupt system now, and I want to open up an investigation inside of my own department." And there have been other talks about investigations being opened up around, into the Chicago department. Which, if Chicago wants to inspect Chicago for corruption, let's go back to Capone there for a second.
Yeah, you're gonna be real busy. Well, first off, it's funny that she wants to have a she wants to investigate the corruption because that's kind of corrupt. You should have an outside person doing the investigation, and then like I don't know if you went into Chicago corruption, that's like tip of the iceberg. You'd be busy for a long, long time. Yeah.
Well, we touched about this a little bit off mic here too, but going back to kind of linking this back around because they didn't put a trial on him. Which, if the city of Chicago was trying to exonerate him completely and make sure that he couldn't get touched again, I would have gone with a trial. In Chicago, I'm sure you can stack a jury full of people that are going to be sympathetic to Smollett.
That is
So
true.
yeah,
I
you
would
could
agree with
you could
that.
get a not guilty or at least a hung jury on him, and then you can't try him again ever for on any level whatsoever. But now he falls outside of the realm of double jeopardy, which means that he can be tried again for this.
Yep,
The
that's
pres
true.
the president has talked about bringing the FBI in onto this and doing a federal investigation, which you set off Mike a little bit too that you weren't sure how this would work based on jurisdiction, but we still have
Yeah,
mail fraud into there that I don't think a lot of
that
people are talking
was
about.
that was the one thing I had forgotten. So you brought it up. Like I don't see him getting charged again in Chicago. It's just not going to happen. They already wasted enough money. That's not going to happen. But the mail fraud thing is, I would think, would be a possibility because that's how they get a lot of people on that and text things. Like if they can't get them on, like Capone, he said, like they never got him on killing all those people, but they got him on tax fraud. So I could see that happening, although I don't know if it politically would be worth it to do it for like Trump. Because, but who knows? There's so many problems that they should be spending time and resources on that we don't, and so at this point, it's like whatever, just go away.
Well, I mean, if the FBI's already in there, who's to stop them from going through and looking into this Chicago machine and the corruption that goes with it?
That's true, but then I don't know. I just see that is like so many. There's so many resources you'd have to do, and I don't know if it would be worth it.
The thing that got me the most when I heard about, and I don't know if this is true or not, I can't answer for the Fox network. I'm not affiliated with them. I've never worked for them. I have no intention on working for them. I made that pretty clear on my solo channel. Um, but now they're talking about putting Smollett back onto Empire after they wrote him off of the show for this coming season because he was all embroiled up into this. And that's the thing that rubs me the wrong way because whether or not he went to prison, he was actually going to face consequences for all of this, and now it just seems like it's completely not going to happen.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I don't know. I guess it probably depends on the contract Fox has with the show and not him, would be my guess. So I'm sure they allow the show to employ whoever they want. If they could have like a say in that and somehow, I don't know, work it so that he's not, but I don't know what the basis would be for getting him off the show. Because like if he's ever been charged or anything, like how are you gonna justify that, you know? So
Sadly enough, I thought they were going to write him off the show, and I've never seen the show, so I have no idea what they were going to do with it. But I thought they were
me
going to
neither.
write him off the show with him passing away from a hate crime.
Yeah, I don't that would I mean I giggle, but that's yeah.
Writers are
I don't know.
vindictive.
I don't know what to say about that. Yeah.
Writers are vindictive. I know I am one.
Yeah, I suppose that would get people to watch the show. So there you go.
Well, with all that being in mind, and the fact that now the president wants to get the Justice Department involved, and the fact that we have an election coming up in 2 years where many people want to change who is in charge of the Justice Department,
Yep.
let's talk 2020 here for a little bit. Um, we've got so many options to go to. Which one do you want to start with? What are there, 500 people
Um,
running now?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. There is so many to talk about. So, I don't know. Just, I guess, give me a name.
Well, the ones that I have in the notes, the big one, the story I've been looking forward to talking about the most, the story I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to talk to on my soul, or a chance to talk about on my solo channel rather, is the fact that Biden now has a sexual harassment charge levied against him, which we all know that he is a little bit handsy, but yeah, now he might actually face some consequences for it.
Yeah, I don't know. He's like one of those good old boys, you know. And so I that doesn't surprise me that he has a charge come up against him. Did he do it? I don't know. But
We've
like you
seen
said,
him do it. There are pictures all over
he
the place.
yeah, he is super touchy-feely, and so that doesn't surprise me. But um I don't know. I don't know if he could get through the primary. I know they like to say that he would be a front runner, but the left has gone so far left. I mean, unless he just said things to get elected, get the nomination. But
Oh, you mean like Hillary did?
yeah, you know. No, she had people that, you know, voted for her. Yeah.
Have you ever met one?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, delegates, no. I've met lots of people that voted for her
Uh,
on the in the actual election, yeah. Yeah.
well, yeah, that's the interesting part. Is he is currently the front runner for the Democrat nomination by the polling. I don't think he's the one that they have coronated, and I think that plays in a little bit to the fact that the story's out there. But he hasn't run yet.
Yeah, he hasn't announced anything and so it's like it's all speculation and even with their polling, like really, yeah, I mean, you're gonna nominate a guy who's failed so many times and what do you want to go back to? I mean, I get maybe the sentimentalism because he was part of the Obama administration and he was his vice president, so you know, bring back the good old days, I guess, but I don't know. I don't see it's more like his time has passed and they're gonna nominate someone who's more like Bernie Sanders. That's what I think.
I actually listen going back to what I was listening to from the podcast from the left that I was listening to. I talked a little bit about this with Mackenzie last week. Not really thinking the idea of it, just throwing the idea around out there that they might already have somebody coronated. Now that I listen to
Oh
them
yeah.
versus listening to how many people around our area don't like the woman, I think they have coronated Elizabeth Warren to be the nominee.
You think so? I don't know. Hmm. Elizabeth Warren, she's interesting because she's wanted to run for so long, and for whatever reason, she didn't want to take on Hillary. But
For whatever reason.
it's
She didn't want to
yeah,
commit suicide in the back of the head, you mean?
I don't know. Like, who knows? It's like if you really believe in something, you should go out, and she should have ran because then you could have had a they could have had better debates, and you could have had actual substance to topics and things. But whatever. But as for 2020, I don't know. I think she would just get kind of lost. She'd be one of those people where it's like, yeah, her time's kind of past too. You know, is she super progressive? Yeah. Would she kind of fit all the check boxes? Yeah, kind of. But I don't know. It's still 2 years away, and a lot can happen in 2 years.
Well, I mean, think about you keep saying time has passed. Think about the top three runners in the polls right now for the Democrat nomination. 3, 2, 1 by age, or 3, 2, 1 rather by polling numbers in ages. 69, or yeah, 69, 77, and 75.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't get into polls because, they were so well last time. But if you want to go by that, yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make a lot of sense though to me because it's like those people. Well, Bernie Sanders has newer ideas, but especially Biden, it's like I don't know. I guess you want to hear their ideas, but that's the other problem is I don't feel like we would actually get new ideas on how to fix things. So, but
Well, the thing with
yeah,
Biden too, it's I always said that Biden was going to be the Union Democrat friendly candidate. I think Bernie's just the one to go out there and appeal to socialist college students who don't remember what life was like before the Berlin Wall fell, and
yeah.
um,
Um,
I thought Hillary
but
Clinton was that's the same thing. You know, she was going to be the friendly one to the banking Democrats, the business Democrats, and the unions. Three things that I don't think the values lined up for with Bernie Sanders, and I think Biden is going to be the same way because I mean we don't know what his policy prescriptions are going to be yet because he hasn't tried to run, but we do know what he stood for the last time he was in public office.
yeah, and but then like a lot of those things, the left doesn't stand for anymore. So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's that's why those polls, like, I don't know, how can you put any give them any credit for those polls? Because I don't know, it's just there's too many things that um there's too many ways that they could just be flawed because what they say and like what I see just personally from the left, there's two different things. So I don't know though. We will definitely see if we get someone in there. I, I'm guessing it's going to be someone really far left, and then Trump will get reelected because are going more left, but I don't think we're going to elect a socialist as president. So
America will never be a socialist country.
not this election. I don't think so.
You think it's actually going to happen?
Uh, I don't know.
I'm a little afraid of that. I'm not going to lie.
In our lifetime, maybe, yeah. Will it be a typical socialism? No, I think it'd probably be more we keep giving up freedoms to the federal government, and then eventually they can tell you when you get to be born, and they can tell you when it's your time to die. You know, um, would it be like a dictatorship? Nah, no, but I don't know. Who knows? Yeah.
Speaking of the presidency, the presidential elections coming up, I saw a meme on Twitter just a little bit before we went on mic here, and I've talked on this show before a lot about the fact that I think MAGA has become a religion. And then I saw a meme that made me really uncomfortable with that thought.
Okay.
Somebody posted a meme out that said, "Don't worry, Donald Trump. Before Jesus was brought into power, the government was insisting that we kill babies too."
Oh man, that's a whole nother ball of wax there.
When you want to start comparing Trump to Jesus,
That's not a good idea. Uh,
we might want to pump the
yeah,
brakes on that one just a little bit.
yeah, I do agree with you that a lot of people in this country, and I see it way easier on the left than the right, but I do see it on the right too. They want to basically replace their religion with politics. So politics has become their religion, and it's kind of sad. Well, it's really sad. Um, but it's just it's part of humanity. Like they want a reason for living, but yet they're putting that in politics, which will eventually fail them.
Oh,
So
it scares me to death. Like I looked at some of the footage from some of these Bernie rallies out there, and I kept hearing that line from the end of The Sound of Silence. The people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and I looked at Bernie at the front of those stadiums. I'm like, wow, that's really accurate.
yeah, yeah, it seems like it's a process of it is going that way. Like people they live for their politics, and that's sad. Like there's so much more to life than politics. Like
Well, I mean, as
uh
as you see in front of me, and you can't see the microphone from the still that you're in, but from what the rest of the audience is seeing, I mean, this is me living for politics, but that's completely different than what I see a lot of these people doing.
yeah, but they like it's sad. Like when that affects how your day goes or your year, or like when you give it that much influence in your life, you need to re-examine what your life is all about. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good to be involved in politics and know what's going on, but when that is your life, that's that's kind of too much. There's way more to life than that.
Who do you think's got the chutzpah to make it to the end?
Oh man, I don't even know. There's so many. Who would be the funniest one, I think, to see would be Beto, because then it'd be like one giant 70s show. But I mean, I don't I don't know. Like who will eventually be there? I don't know. There's a whole lot more smart people than me, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of people with a whole lot of money who will get their person there in the end. But who that is, I have no idea.
Well, there are a lot of news outlets out there, because you brought up Beto there, that I've been seeing lately that say that the surefire ticket to unthrone Trump and bring him down and get him out to where the Southern District of New York can indict him and put him in prison for the rest of his life is going to be the Harris Beto ticket.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I get why they say that because there's that part of the left that voted for Obama that didn't vote for Hillary, and they want those people to vote again. But I mean, that would be interesting. The debates would be interesting.
I would love. That is what I'm looking for. I swear to God, I say this every single episode I talk about this. Kamala Harris has never run against a Republican anywhere in her political career
Yeah,
because of the way that
yeah,
Los Angeles is done and the way that their primary system is stacked up.
yeah. It doesn't have to be. They can both the top two can be the same party.
Yep.
So, um, yeah, I don't. That would be interesting. Just have her and Pence debate. Like I don't know.
No, they want
That
to
would
put her on
be
the top.
that
They
would
don't want
be
to. They want to put Beto as the vice president.
oh well,
So
that would
that'd be
be
her and
really
Trump.
interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting. Oh man, I kind of wanted to see a Trump Beto debate. That would be interesting, but I don't know that. I don't know. Kamala Harris, she is just like I can't take her seriously, so she'll just say whatever to get elected.
Yeah, that's about true.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too about bringing in California politicians out into campaign against the rest of the country. I mean, Harris did just go out and campaign in Houston because now they're all talking about that they're not going to let each state go to its each of its hometown boys. So she's stepping over onto Beto territory, and Bernie went down to California.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I know one thing for sure. This election and how the Democratic whoever it is person whoever gets elected, how they campaign will be completely different the last time.
Well, I talked about that with my mom too. My parents are both reliable Democrat voters, just because of their upbringing. Um, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, the campaign. It is going to be different because I mean Tulsi Gabbard has some good ideas. I'll give her that. I
Mhm.
don't necessarily agree with her stance on guns, but I mean she's not a warmonger out there. She's a little bit more centrist as far as gay rights because she doesn't want to like push us into abolishing religion in order to make gay rights everything.
Yeah.
I don't mind Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think she's got the guts to make it to the end. But I mean, she's actually got a policy out there. For the most part, everybody else that we're watching here right now, their policy prescription is I hate Trump more than that guy does.
Yeah. And I don't see how they can win that way. I mean, I can see how they could win the primary that way, but I don't see how they would win a national election that way. Like, eventually, you would think they would say something like, okay, I see that this is broken. Here's how I think we should fix it. But I don't see them doing that. And so if they don't, there's no way they're gonna win.
Well, even their constituency and their pundits are talking about the fact that, okay, this person is trying to run on an idea. They're not saying how much they hate Trump, so they have no future in politics. I heard that on Pod Save America. Today I
Yeah,
heard that on there, on
which
that
is
show.
completely backwards.
Yeah.
Should be the other way around. Like, oh, hey, they have an idea. We should listen to it, and then we should critique it. No, that's not how it works anymore.
Well, speaking of people who have big ideas, uh, Senator McConnell came out this week and decided that he was going to bring a vote. How do you like that transition, by the way?
That was good. That was a good one.
McConnell came out and said he was going to bring the vote to the floor on the Green New Deal because 12 senators co sponsored it. Every Democrat in the Senate said that they backed it, and he wanted to see who actually wanted to have their name tied to it. So he brought a vote down to the floor to see if it was able to be brought to the floor and debated. Have you read the Green New Deal?
No, the actual deal, no. But I do know.
I've read it front to back.
Oh man, well then you'll know better than me.
It's
But
only
I'm
14
sure.
pages, so.
Oh, okay. See, well, hey, at least they got something right. It's not 14,000 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just from what I've heard other people talk about it, it's it's not practically feasible. Like I understand why she would put it out and why the left would endorse it so much, even though when it came time for the actual vote, they didn't. But it's part of me just it's that part of it's like control. And
Mm-hmm.
so because I don't believe in global warming. Well, I believe the climate is always changing. Is it caused by CO2? No. Is it caused by a whole lot of other things like the sun and a bunch of other stuff? Yes. Should we do more research on all those things? Yes. Should all our government funding be funneled to people who only say it's caused by CO2? No, that's really dumb. And that's a dumb way to do science. And so, like, the Green New Deal is it's just the next step in the evolution of the way that they're controlling funding and where it goes. That's all it is. It's a way to funnel money to people who agree with you instead of people who are doing actual science. Yep. But
Well, and I've read the thing front to back too, and it's less about actually lowering CO2 emissions. I've talked with a lot of people about this when I've talked about the fact that it's out there. Um, the thing with the Green New Deal is it's more of a social structure change in our country and not necessarily a way to reduce greenhouse gases in the world. First things first, I want to know when CO2 became a greenhouse gas because you and I have been putting out CO2 for 35 years.
yeah, yeah, it technically it is a greenhouse gas. Although it only makes up, I think it's like 3% of the gases, greenhouse gases. The number one greenhouse gas is water vapor, so good luck getting rid of that. But that's a whole nother story. If we didn't have water vapor, we'd all
Yeah.
be dead.
Well, and the thing that I wanted to go further with on this, if, yeah, we can go and make ourselves completely 100% emissions pure in this country. We can
Hmm.
kill industry. We can make industry all go that way, which we've come a long way in doing so far just on market pressure because a lot of our generation won't buy from companies that spew out toxins or break the
Yeah.
rules or do anything like that. And that's just a market choice that we make. I tend to lean towards companies that try to be more environmentally friendly.
Yep. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for about doing responsible things and keeping the environment as clean as we can. So like smog in cities, that's bad. We should be actively thinking of ways to get rid of that. But is it necessarily all CO2? No. And it bugs me when research can't get funded because it doesn't include the CO2 part of it. That's
Well,
that's the part that bugs me.
and the thing, and I've never been to California, so I don't know this for sure, but I mean, I understand how after treatment works on diesels now because I was on the floor for, or as a mechanic for years, and that was one of the things that was coming up at the
Hmm.
time. Um, there are people out there that say just because of the level of smog that's in Los Angeles right now, if you take an after treatment equipped diesel truck down in there, you're putting cleaner air out of the stacks than what you're taking in through the intake manifold.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. When you some of those pictures you see of LA and just the smog, it's it's kind of it makes you think.
Which
And then, but then like it's not the problem is not just a U.S. problem.
That's
So like
exactly where I was going with that. I mean, we've come to a point where we're almost zero emission on industry, especially the trucking industry, which was one of the worst offenders in our country for a very long time. But we have countries like India and China that have no emission standards whatsoever, and they're just belching deep, black, carbon rich smoke right up into the air over their countries in an atmosphere
yeah,
that we share.
yep. And so the the problem is how we don't. There's no world government and we can get them to agree to things, but then most of the time they don't hold up their end of the bargain. And then where is how do we get to a place where it's actually fair between everyone? And that's uh that's for people who get paid way more money than I do and are smarter than me.
Don't say world government. Somebody from the left might actually watch this and get an idea.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am
I'm
for the opposite of that. The less amount of government in every stage of government is better.
I am joking, of course. Nobody from the left is going to watch this show. This doesn't agree with their echo chamber.
They could leave YouTube on and it could just pop up someday.
Here's hope.
Uh-huh.
Well, you brought it. You teased it when we opened the topic here because we talked about the Green New Deal and the contents into it. But as we saw over the news over this last week, while every major presidential candidate actually co-sponsored this bill, said they were all for that, McConnell held the vote in the Senate, and nobody voted yay on this bill at all. Not even a
Nope.
I mean, none of the Democrats had the courage to say nay. A couple of them did cross the aisle, I guess, and say no, we don't want to do this. But anybody else just voted present. They had zero yes votes on this.
Yeah. And that just, well, I guess that kind of surprised me. I guess I would have thought someone would have, but on the other hand, I'm sure they talked about it beforehand and said, "Yeah, I'm just gonna vote present." So then they all did.
Well, that was
But
the thing too. It's people were talking about, yeah. When McConnell brought this to the floor, this was supposed to be a political stunt because the evil McConnell is trying to make the Democrats who are running for president put their names to this.
yeah,
Okay, Cortez
well,
just
it's
told us we
like,
have 12 years.
yeah,
Don't,
if it's really that, well, that's a whole nother story, which whatever. But if we really only did have 12 years, you'd think that they would want to vote yes and get it approved, even if it's not perfect. But yeah, that's just another. It's just another part of the process where it's like, oh, well, then why are you wasting our time? Like it's just it's all politics and not actually about getting results, which is dumb and annoys me.
yeah, if we've got that little time left, let's do something about it. Save us.
Yeah.
Save us, future
Yes.
wife Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Save us. Oh,
Yes.
wait, did I say that out loud?
Save us, crazy lady. Oh, yeah. Oh man. No, I'm not gonna go down there. If you guys got married, that would be weird.
I'd bring her right to your house.
Oh, that'd be weird. All right.
So that's where we're going on the Green New Deal. That was interesting to me too. It's just, I mean, I can't disagree that it was a political stunt to have it brought down to the floor, but the fact of the matter is that everybody was so vocally in favor of it when it first came out, and now they don't want to vote on it. So,
Yep. I know. It's all about politics. The whole reason she even released it is political
yeah.
because you know it wasn't gonna get passed.
No, nobody wants to see that much control go over to the federal government. And,
Nope.
I mean, the people that were going to be voting for it knew it was political suicide to begin with. So,
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, we can make fun of it now, so that's good.
well, you know what else we can make fun of? Theresa May
What?
has decided that she wants to have a mulligan on the Brexit vote that came out in 2016.
Oh
The vote is
yeah.
actually scheduled now. That happened this past week. I don't know when the actual date they're going to vote on it is, but they do have it scheduled. They are officially going to redo the Brexit vote.
All right. So then after the vote, when they agree to leave still, then they're still gonna not know what to do. That'll be great.
Well, May will come back up and said, no, vote again. We will keep doing this until you get it right.
Yeah, because that's how government should work. No, they should not work that way at all.
We have a decision that we're going to impose on you, but we're going to have you vote on it so it's symbolic. And you're going to
Uh-huh.
keep voting on it until you come to our decision.
Exactly. No, you dummies, you didn't do what we want.
Well, the Brexit
Oh,
thing
I know.
was a huge thing on our side of the pond too, because a lot of people are signaling the fact that with Brexit happening, it's what officially got us Trump to begin with, because the independence of the UK was a lead to us, and it made people on our side of the pond realize that we didn't want to be controlled by a big government. I don't know how realistic that is, but
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. I would say our situations were similar, which led to those two results. Um, but I don't think because Brexit happened, Trump got elected. I think he would have got elected either way because of the situation in the US. And Brexit happened because of the situation in the UK.
mhm.
So, um, are there similarities? Yeah. Can you try to connect the dots if you want? Sure, but did one happen because of the other? I don't think so.
Well, the EU is a scary idea to me to begin with. It's all of these supposed independent countries that have all united under the moniker of one super country.
Yeah,
That's
and so
that's not really different from what we have over, or at least what our country was intended to be between the Constitution and the Federalist Papers.
yeah, I mean, I'm again like for me, the less government you have is better. So that's adding another layer to them. And so I definitely would not want like if Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. decided, oh hey, we're gonna have a North American government. No, that's not gonna fly. Like, um, it's it's like there's so many things that the federal government already I feel is overreached on. Why would you add another layer of that so that they can overreach? Like, stop controlling my life. I do what I want.
Well, and the UK really, if you look at it, is it's already overreached once, and then the European Union is another overreach up on top of it because, I mean, the UK is a super country to begin with because it's
Yeah, yeah.
England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland. Is Northern Ireland a part of the UK? I thought they weren't.
No, I don't think so because they're still part of the EU.
But I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
you've already got one super government that's made up of several different countries, and then that super government is a part of another super government.
yeah. I mean, I can see why they would want it in the first place. There are some benefits, but then you have to decide, do the benefits outweigh all the negative stuff that comes with that? So like if you add another layer of government, that's another layer of government that could eventually be corrupt.
Hmm.
That's also another layer of government that needs to be funded. Well, who's going to pay for that? Like, so um yeah,
Well, and
there's so many intricacies with that.
Chancellor
But
Merkel did come out. It was right after the Brexit vote, I believe, and said that in order to combat the problems they were having in the EU and global threats that were coming to the EU, there was a little bit of instability over there at the time. They really needed to reorganize the European Union into the United States of Europe. Which, if you remember the last two times that Germany tried to annex Europe, it did
yeah,
not go so well.
no, for nobody. No, nobody won. Doesn't help anyone. No. Yeah, like I mean, in a perfect reality, could they do some things in agreement together, but yet still be independent? That would be like perfect, Like so just the freedom to travel in between or like
Yeah.
certain like trade agreements and stuff. Yeah, but do you want a whole nother like layer of government? That's what comes down for me. Like, no, less government. Stop it. Stop making more government. But
Well, and I mean, the EU is, I said it already once before when we were talking about this, it really is structured right now the way that our country was supposed to be structured, where the EU is only supposed to govern transactions that go between the member countries, and
mhm.
it's supposed to guarantee free travel through the countries, and it's not really supposed to have anything else. And that's kind of the idea that our founding fathers had for our federal government when they started out in 1790 when they were writing the Constitution, where it was only supposed to be a standing military, which the EU would also take care of at that point, interstate commerce, and free travel between the states. That was the only thing the federal government was supposed to be involved in. And now we've got almost no state sovereignty at this point, and
Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, it's so those are good ideas, but then it's when you add more government and then you keep giving more and more, little by little, eventually
mm-hmm.
turns into this huge thing, and then as we're now seeing, it's super hard to get away from that, which the UK is realizing really fast.
And we're even trying to do that a little bit in our country too. Just there's a faction of the Republican Party that is trying to limit the federal government. It's libertarians. I, for the most part, fall under that party. I do see a reality of government in our life, but I'm not completely
Mhm.
anarcho government. But
Yeah.
there are people out
Um,
there that are.
yeah, and I would definitely not be for no federal government. The federal government definitely has a purpose, but the smaller. its purpose is, the better. Like you said, the main purpose is to take care of us and to make sure all the states get along and we can freely travel and do whatever we need to do in between the states. But it shouldn't be this iron fist of a federal government that basically tells everybody what to do. And that's kind of I've seen the pushback from that because that's kind of where we've been headed, and then a lot of people don't like that, and they're finally realizing, oh hey, we should probably not do that, which is good.
One of the things that I've seen come out of this whole Brexit thing is they have had a new political party come up in England. When I had Jen the Libertarian on my show, we were talking about the Canada Independence Party, the new party that showed up there, and her and I talked about the fact that libertarianism is really an American idea, and I mean, even right and left have different meanings over in Europe and in Canada. But there is a party that's popped up over in the UK called they call themselves UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party. I don't know if you've read anything up on them.
I have not, no.
A lot of the big ringleaders to the party are actually YouTubers that are from over in England. Sargon of Akkad is high up in that party. Uh, Tommy Robinson is high up in that party. I believe Count Dankula is in that party, which could be some of the pushback that a lot of the citizenry has to that. I don't. Did you hear that story or not? The Dankula story.
No, I did not hear that.
Scottish. He's not really a shock jock because a YouTuber, but he's kind of the same idea. He's like a
Okay,
Howard Stern on YouTube. Decided
all
to
right.
teach his pug, or his girlfriend's pug rather, to make the Nazi salute under a command that I'm not going to say on this channel because it'll get me shut down.
Uh, yeah, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
And they were going to put him
Oh,
in jail for that.
well, yeah, they don't exactly have freedom of speech like we do.
Yeah. But the idea
Yeah,
is it's something that's helped, or A, to try and push England into a more libertarian state, and B, to help try and get them the out of the European Union.
yeah. I definitely, I, I definitely think that it would be better if they did. Of course, they already voted on it, but they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna revote. It's interesting that that whole party is, well, I don't know if it's the whole party, but you're saying a bunch of people are from YouTube. That's
Hmm.
kind of interesting to me. Um, because like I've seen how YouTube has definitely influenced different parts of life. So like I can when we first YouTube first started, and then there was the whole big gamers on YouTube, and I was just like, I don't understand it. Like I get it, I kind of get it now, but I still don't understand it. Like the people who like give money to people on YouTube, and it's like, man, okay. I mean, I don't want to give my money away to YouTube people, but sure, you're doing it. That's great.
I do it.
So, yeah, I mean, lots of people do. Like, so I understand it because there's different parts of YouTube where it's like building a community, and then people can be part of that community, and it's all centered around different things. So, like for the people you were mentioning, it's centered on making the UK more independent. But um, shoot, I forgot where I was going to go with that. Oh, just disappeared.
Well,
But yeah.
making them more independent too. That's come with pushback from the European Union and even on the left over here because I mean all of these people are regarded to be flat out Nazis over there. Which on the right and the left are different in Europe. It's not like here we have a semblance of smaller government from the constituents on the right. Obviously, our
Mhm.
politicians don't really care about that, which we could have a whole 75-minute show about me ranting about that.
Uh-huh.
But for the most part, the constituents of the right are a smaller government versus bigger government. That's the right and the left over here. Over there, the right and the left is it's nationalism versus globalism. And when you say the word nationalist in Europe, that's got some pretty negative connotations.
Yeah, well, that's because they went through two world wars that were actually there and not. like here where we went there.
Hmm.
So it's definitely a little different. Although there's very few people that were still alive for those.
Right.
So I would think you would think within another generation that would be that would be completely different kind of conversation. Even there,
Well, each generation is going to just keep propping that idea up, and we even see that now.
yeah, that's true. But it's definitely there's something to be said for living through something and compared to hearing someone talk about something they lived through. So
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, you say that some of this will disappear after it goes away or after some of the people die off that lived through it, but I see it the opposite. Some of these words are going to, they're not going to have the same meaning and they're going to be thrown around as something's bad. I got called a Nazi on Twitter the other day.
oh
I,
no,
I, I had
you're
a
in a
crush on
Nazi
Ashley
club.
Tisdale, so I have no problem with Jewish people whatsoever. I had a crush on her for years.
I can confess to that. Yep, you've told me that a long time ago.
You've seen my screensaver.
um, yeah, that is true. People will take words and they will morph them to mean what they want them to mean, and then it just eventually, if there is they can get enough people to consent to that, that's how words get changed. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. Each generation is different, and it's kind of weird. Getting old is weird. Just you get to see the more things you get to see, the more it's like, oh, huh. So like when whoever I was talking to is talking about this other thing, I get it now. So, but yeah.
That's all I got on that, and looks like we're at 81 minutes right now. So, what do you say we start doing the outro monologue and get the hell out of here?
All right.
Well,
I'm here to do whatever you want.
the last thing that we always do on Ed's World, because we talk about such heavy topics and politics can get so negative, I want to hear about a hobby that you have. And okay, I know you personally, so I know about a lot of hobbies that you have, but the audience out here doesn't. So why don't you tell my audience here about a hobby that you have that has nothing to do with work or politics? It could be a game you're playing, it could be gardening, pets, or like a CD you're listening to. Tell us something positive. Lead us out of here with that.
All right. Well, you mentioned it probably not on accident. I think you're kind of trying to lead me there with gardening.
Hmm.
Um, so, so
Are you
I,
still involved in that?
um, with the school district, no,
Huh.
but I still do gardening, a lot. And so, well, I guess so everyone knows, I've basically been gardening my whole life. So ever since I could remember, my grandpa had a giant garden, grew lots of different things, mostly tomatoes. He liked tomatoes a lot, and he grew way too many, and then he would give them away to people. Um, but so as far as I can remember, I've always been gardening my whole life. And then I went to college for horticulture, and then I ended up working with the school district where I live, and we started a garden program, and we eventually got gardens into 21 different schools, and that was fun.
That
And
was an impressive project. I remember helping you with that.
yeah, it started out with just one school, and a teacher had an idea, and she came to me and was like, "Hey, can you help me out with this?" And then we ended up getting a bunch of grants, and I think like we ended up getting over close to $400,000 worth of grants for the entire project. But then eventually the grant money ran out, and the school district didn't want to pay me because, well, they hadn't been paying me ever. And so they're
Why
like,
would they
why
start
should
now?
we pay you now? Yeah. So I'm like, well, I got to pay bills. So I had to get a real job. And then, but I still do gardening on my own. And I have a pretty big garden, and I get a bunch of kids involved, from my church. So that's good. It's always good it's always good to have kids know where food actually comes from and that it actually has to grow. You don't just have to go to the supermarket and buy it.
Well, I didn't just plug gardening because I knew that you were into it. I do know that if you look over my shoulder over there, you have a little garden of horrors over there. Because after I moved out of where we used to live, I started gardening myself, but I mostly focus on plants that eat bugs.
Oh yeah, those are fun, but then that means you gotta have bugs for them to eat. So yeah, how many bugs you got in your house? I don't know.
Well, when I lived in my last place, when I moved in with my ex, we had a major fruit fly infestation, and they suddenly
Uh,
disappeared.
yeah, that'll happen. Yeah, so carnivorous plants they're cool. They're definitely different than normal plants. I got a bunch of well, you can probably see the light over there. It's from got a bunch of orchids
Okay.
in my room.
Oh,
But
you've got a grow light too?
yep,
Yeah.
got a big old LED, 4 foot LED light.
I probably have the same one I do.
Yeah, I just got a cheap one because it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's what I have too. I got it on Amazon.
Yep.
All right, let's get the hell out of here. Again, thanks to the audience for listening to the show. Thanks to Brian for coming in and joining us today and talking about the issues. Once again, if you like what you saw, and I hope that you do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button that you're going to see right below me here. I have the notes over myself and I can't see where I'm pointing, but it's down there somewhere. If you want to look or listen back later on the audio platforms, we are available on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, rather, Google Play, and Stitcher. Make sure you subscribe over there, and then you can listen back in the car. Sometimes on a longer show like this, it's a little bit easier. As I said before, if you like what you hear and you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating and a good review. And if you have a 3-star rating for me, why don't you send me a message and we'll see what I can do to correct it because I want to make sure that you've got a 5-star show. If you're listening to this and you want to take the discussion further, you can follow me on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. Brian, if you have anything that you want to plug on your own or any media that you want to have so people can discuss with you?
Nope, I don't have anything. I'm just one of those people who lurk in the background and watch everybody's stuff.
Well, that's always fine too, and I thank you for watching my stuff. As I always say as we close out the show, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusion because, I work, he works, my guests all work, so we can't study everything and we get it wrong sometimes. Make sure that you're finding the real narrative and not just what people are telling you to think. Brian, you have last word.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. This was fun. Never done anything like this before. So, just thanks.
And thank you. Take care, everyone.